I must confess, I was deeply impressed by the profound and comprehensive vision of the report, the aim at the alteration of the statute of nuclear war and the nuclear deterrent in international law. As I was dazzled with the stringent logic of the simulated process accompanies the report. Both contributions are extremely persuasive because both appeal to a higher notion of justice. We should not forget, in fact, that the very beginnings of the systematic justice in human societies are in fact a limitation of the legitimate violence in society. We are used to remember the so-called Talion law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, as an example of rudimentary states of laws lacking any notion of compensation. It is right if we compare this norm with future legislation. If instead we compare it with the precedent state of affairs, we instantly see that an eye for an eye is a principle of limitation. You should not take a life for an eye, but only an eye for another one. In the famous Hammurabi Code, the prescription are careful to weigh the punishment with the exact dimension of the specific crime they are allowed to avenge. Even from this very simple, almost childlike perspective, nuclear war cannot be accepted because its overwhelming power of destruction exceeds any possible retaliation. Even God cannot destroy the whole Sodom and Gomorrah and spare Lot and his wife. There is no salvation left in a nuclear war. The theme of the demonstration that our distinguished colleague presents his argument for a decisive ban of nuclear attacks and even nuclear threats are brilliantly persuasive. I do not doubt, indeed, that you will be convinced. I am far from believing instead that the nuclear powers will surrender willingly their weapon of supremacy in the world. As Professor Nagan himself observes, the number of sovereign states which dispose of a nuclear arsenal has not decreased after the end of the Cold War. On the contrary, today they are more numerous than a few years ago. Worse, the newcomers are mostly what the Americans call rogue states, stated entities which do not assume the general principle of human rights and of international law. While I am perfectly aware that these rogue states do not take into account the potential threat of superior nuclear power, I must also acknowledge the fact that the ordinary citizen of the great nuclear powers will never accept to disarm in these conditions. For it is not only the elites of the US or UK or even more of the Russian Federation who do not envision a complete liquidation of their nuclear arsenals. A substantial majority of their citizens do not accept to limit, let alone to destroy their entire nuclear weaponry. In fact, the Russian case is a striking example of a popular support for the mighty solution. President Putin owes a lot of popularity to his policies of revival of the Red Army tradition of the power display. In this context, the international card may ban with the utmost severity the use of nuclear threats or of nuclear weapons, neither NATO nor Russia will obey. And this is reality. And the confrontational situation between Russia and the West is in fact history. New challenges, new threats are menacing the peace of the world and its simplest survival. Even if it is today proven that international terrorism cannot be deterred by nuclear threats, and even if the Iraqi war has proven that the mass destruction weapons can be a phantasm with dire consequences, I do not hope to see the US, which continues to be the most committed superpower of all to the cause of the human rights, renounce its supreme weapons. This does not mean that we must abandon the cause. On the contrary, half a century ago, neither of us who were born and active could imagine a unified Europe, a defensive alliance of all the nations from the Pacific Ocean to the Black Sea, and a conference about peace and human rights in the heart of the southeastern Europe. Let's hope that 50 years from today, the nuclear threat will be evacuated from the world.